Hello again and welcome to The Luxury of Choice, a B2B sales and business podcast brought to you by the training team of George James Limited. My name is Steve Vaughan. I'm a senior sales trainer and director at George James, and I'm also the host and producer of this podcast. And today I've got two of my colleagues with me, Jayne Green and Pascal Floch. And then Jayne is in the UK like I am, so I know it's nice and warm where you are right now, Jayne. The weather's beautiful up here, isn't it?
It is. We've had a really lovely spell. It's great.
And what's it like in France right now? Are you having a nice weather as well?
Yeah, really sunny and lovely weather. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure it won't last. Probably by the time the listeners listen to this, it's probably snowing, knowing the UK. And now I'm tempting fate, I know. So, well, I'm off to California in a couple of days on business anyway. So I can guarantee it'll be 75 degrees Fahrenheit all week long in that part of the world.
Is that why you're wishing snow on us, Steve?
As if I would. No, as if I would. Just that sort of, expectation of weather in the UK. We all know what it can be like. So let's move on to today's topic. So we've got another episode today very much aimed at the salespeople, but also the sales managers listening in today. And it's what do we do, or what are the sort of best practices when the sales manager wants to go out in the field with the salesperson. So let's imagine that we're thinking about a territory salesperson in the field, covering a territory, and their boss rings up and says, "Hey, what you're doing next Tuesday, I want to come out with you for the day." What are our thoughts? Is that something we should welcome? Is this something we should be terrified by? And also, what's the kind of best practice we should think about in such a situation? Jayne, when you got that phone call from your boss when you were in the field as a territory salesperson, what was your first thought?
I think in my early days, it was like, yikes.
Yeah.
Why are they coming out with me? It depends where you are and how confident you are, I think, in your sales journey. But, it can be a little bit daunting, can't it? That sense of like, oh, I'm going to be, does everything have to be perfect? Do I have to create this really special day that's out of the ordinary? But yeah, it can have a bit of a strange feeling. It can feel a little bit stressful.
It can.
At times.
I need to make a confession here right now that when I was a very, very, very young salesperson, so somewhere back in the dark ages, my first sales job, I had a sales manager come out with me in the field. He was going to come out for 2 days. And the first day I was out with him, he was vile. You'd probably say now in modern parlance, you'd probably say he was a bully, really. Obviously no names. And my first day was a bit of a disaster, and I had to admit I pretended to be ill the second day. First time, and the only time I've ever done it in my life. I had a tummy upset, and I wasn't able to spend the day with him. So confession time. I'm sure you've never done anything like that, Pascal.
Let's say I'm taking quite a different approach here because when I was starting in sales, I was unlucky enough. I don't know. But the thing is that my boss were always remote. So when some of them proposed me to come on site, I was very pleased because I felt a bit alone on my own. So yeah, it was just the other way around.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very
good. Interesting. Yeah. So let's look into, why would a sales manager want to come out in the field with a salesperson? There's lots of reasons really, but what are our thoughts? We'll start with you, Jayne. What are your thoughts as to what are the benefits of a sales manager coming out into the field with their salesperson for the day?
Well, it's actually really important for sales managers to come out and see their sales team on territory, see them in action. One, it can be incredibly... So I have been very fortunate to have some really great managers in the past as well. So, when you get over that initial yikes, if you're fairly new, it's great having a manager there. You've got another set of eyes, you've got another set of ears that kind of sits, in every call with you, and that opportunity to get some really, really great feedback, and it's that sort of part of the coaching that happens throughout the time when a sales manager is with you. And for me, that is so important and incredibly beneficial for both parties.
Couldn't agree more. The sales manager in the field can get to see their person doing the job in real time. I always used to say to lab managers when I was a sales manager, why am I here today? Well, you could walk into your lab and see your staff at any moment of the time, every day of the week. I only get to see my staff very occasionally, really doing their job. Pascal, you're a qualified coach and you do a lot of coaching. So I guess from your perspective, there's a lot of benefits from a coaching perspective for a manager to be in the field.
Indeed. Yeah, thanks, Steve. And actually, that's a fantastic opportunity, both for the sales reps and for their manager to learn from each other, but also, as Jayne said, to get the best out of a meeting. but also to have a very successful follow-up in order to increase or improve the sales performance, the sales skills of the sales rep. And for the sales manager, it's also an opportunity to look at which area he would probably focus his efforts on to provide the best level of support for his team members.
Right. So if you've got that call with your boss coming out, do you try and set up a special day? Do you try and get like all your best customers aligned for the day and say, hey, my boss is coming out, can we have a great call today? Or would you just do whatever you were planning to do that day, Jayne?
Well, it depends how quickly they want to come out, but I would want to do whatever I normally do. What have I got planned? For me, it's all about, and don't we talk about preparation an awful lot and planning planning ahead. If years ago, my manager said, I'm coming out with you next week, I would like to think that I'd have already prepared what next week looks like. So I'm not trying to create a different day than would be normal. What I might want to add in would be, if I've got a tough customer that I'm struggling with a bit, I might want to take my manager into that account too.
Great idea.
But I would say let's do what you normally do. Have the normal pace of your day and plan well for it and prepare and go with that.
That's a great thought. And the thought I hadn't thought about actually is if you have got your boss coming out with you, how can you make best use of that opportunity to move a sale forward? I see you nodding, Pascal. Yeah? Something you agree?
Definitely. And I always told my team, please use me as a tool.
Right.
To get the best of your meetings. Of course, we need to agree up front about who will play which role.
However, that's super important.
Yes, that's key, and probably we'll come back on this. But whatever the roles are, let's say, how can we get the best of the meetings? We'll get first to get the highest satisfaction level as possible for the customer, but also for us, related to the goal of the meeting.
Agreeing roles up front is super important. Again, another story from my very early sales career. Actually, it was the same company. I remember being in a customer meeting with my sales manager, and we were trying to close the sale, and it wasn't going very well. And all of a sudden, my sales manager stood up and absolutely tore into me and said, "You've wasted my time. You've wasted this customer's time," and stormed out and left me with the customer, both looking like her face had dropped, her jaws are wide open. And I think in their idea, the idea was to try and get me back into the sale, but it didn't work. So agreeing those roles up front and who's going to do what and where is super important. Jayne, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think you need a plan. You need to know how you're going to play each call that you're going into. But what I would say for salespeople is you're still, unless you've agreed a different plan because of a specific customer that you're going to see, remember that you're in the driving seat.
Yeah, it's
your customer.
Absolutely.
Don't sit back as a passenger just because your manager's there. Take control of that meeting as you would normally and, practice what you know is best.
Yeah, super point. Yeah.
To do that.
Because you've got to go and see that customer again afterwards on your own at some stage.
Yeah.
And if the manager's kind of taken over, that's kind of changed the relationship a little bit. In fact, it might even be the customer wants to see the manager next time, every time, perhaps.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So what kind of things did you prepare then beforehand, Pascal, when you went in with a salesperson? How did you do that?
First of all, it's quite similar to when you have to prepare your own visits,
Absolutely.
So with or without your manager. So what's the purpose of the meeting? What's the goal you want to achieve? Mm-hmm. What does the customer may expect from this meeting according to you? And what are the things you need to prepare to be able to answer any, let's say, question, objection, whatever?
Yep.
Making sure that you come with the right level of information, the right materials, and last but not least, what is the type of commitment you want to get from the customer at the end of the meeting?
Right. Yeah. Good point. And part of the preparation should be to let the customer know that your boss is coming in with you that day, in my opinion, because they may, even for something as fundamental as security, they may have to watch a health and safety video, all that kind of stuff. So if they're not expecting the manager to be with you and you're sitting in the reception, there's two people rather than one, that might create a problem actually for the customer. So you should always let the customer know that there's going to be two of you. And I've always believed you should be absolutely upfront with the customer as to who the person is. Don't say they're from marketing or something, unless they are from marketing. If it's your boss, then let's be honest, Jayne, say, I've got my boss with me today.
Yeah, definitely. Let the person know that you've got your boss coming or your line manager, however you use the language within your company so that the customer knows. And it's just that part, isn't it? They may need an extra pass to get in. They may need extra authority to get through the door. So
absolutely,
make your life easier by planning for that up front, by letting people know, all parties know who is coming, because customers often don't like, an extra person turning up. No. Haven't planned for that.
Well, it's a surprise, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Make it easier.
Yeah. What about then if the customer just wants to talk to the boss? You've sat down in front of the customer, and the customer's all they're obviously doing is talking to the boss and kind of cutting you out as the salesperson. Pascal, how would you handle that as the salesperson? We'll talk about the manager another time, but as a salesperson, how would we handle?
Yes, again, back to the preparation, I would say that assuming that you inform the customer, as you should do, that you'll come with your boss, but also about the roles. I think number of salespeople are afraid of saying this to their customers, that they come with their boss and the boss will only be the observer. I would really encourage them to do so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Telling the truth and be clear with the roles, because then first it decreases the chance or the risk that customers will suddenly look at the boss as the one to talk with instead of the sales rep. And second, if it happens anyway, you can, let's say, go back to the rules that, or at least the proposal you made that, that the boss is here as an observer and the sales rep is the driver.
Super.
So if I would be the boss in that case, I would turn back to my team member and also let's say answer the customers. Okay, let's say my colleague answering to you, because he's the one to drive the conversation.
Yeah,
and I will be pleased to provide any additional thought if needed. But I'm fully confident that he will have the elements you need to get.
Yeah. And I think there's, I was going to say body language. I'm not sure it's a body language, but almost like a geometry perspective to this. And that's where does everybody sit, really? So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go on, Jayne. You're obviously thinking the same thing as me on that one.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think very carefully when you're going into a meeting. If the customer knows that you're there, then there's likely to be 2 chairs. If it's in an office or, if you're standing in a laboratory or kind of wherever you are, then make sure you're the person that is in closest proximity to the customer, because that would suggest that you're the one having the conversation.
Absolutely.
And again, your body language, be open gestures, be very much part of that conversation, leaning in rather than leaning back. The moment we lean back, it looks like we're a little bit less engaged and somebody else might actually want to take that.
Forward now.
But I think I remember an instance, and I've seen it happen from the reverse for myself when I've been in a call with one of my team, to say to the customer, for the salesperson to say, if the customer is looking for an answer from the sales manager, then it's okay for the salesperson to say, I can answer that for you. Yeah. Take back that control. It's really gentle.
Yeah, that's a good way of
doing it. I can answer that for you. And it just brings that focus back to the person that should be leading that moment.
Or the sales manager could say, well, what do you think, Pascal? Assuming you're the salesperson here, Pascal, what do you think, Pascal, to that one? And get you back into the conversation, really.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, good point, really. And what about, no, go ahead, Pascal, sorry.
Yeah, it could be also about a sign you agree with your teammate, so what sort of sign you agree up front. So when I do this sign like this or whatever, then help me.
Yeah, help, I'm thinking, yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Have it like a secret, but an agreed keyword or trigger word or something that if you're the salesman says, I'm struggling here a little bit, can you help me out, boss? I usually just say, if I was asking me, the boss, what do you think, Steve? What's your thoughts on that? And that means I'm struggling here. I need your input a little bit. Yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
What about then when we come out of the call? So that you've been in the call with the sales manager. So we're back to being the salesperson again now. You've been in with your boss. You get back into the car. You sit in the car and you think, right, here it goes. What are all the things I did wrong?
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all felt that feeling. But how can we make that a more constructive thing, Jayne?
Yeah, I think I would be proactive. Encourage proactivity of saying to your manager, can you give me some feedback? On how that call went.
Great, yeah.
And I love that. Welcome that. Feedback is so important for all of us, in whatever we're doing. But ask for that, and also there's that part, isn't it? It's like, even analysing yourself out loud, asking for feedback to say, look, I think this went really well and I think I handled that really well, but I wasn't too sure when this happened. What do you think?
Yeah,
Be very specific.
And of course, we covered feedback on our last episode, but feedback is a gift. And we talked about the 3 stars of the WIS, which 3 things did I do really well? What one thing could I have done better? Even if it was a brilliant call or a terrible call, both of those applied. How did you give or receive feedback after a sales call, Pascal?
Yeah, first thing is that, let's say, if I am the sales rep, as Jayne said, I would be proactive and I would provide first my feedback, how things went, how it went, what went well, so that would be the first point. And the trap for a sales manager would be to give his feedback first, because then it would kill
Absolutely.
any initiative from the sales rep to share, or at least he would feel first, not really supported or listen, whatever. Again, the sales rep to provide his feedback first, what went well, starting with a positive thing, and what he would see as things to be improved next time, as areas of development. And, from the list of ideas or options he would see, then the sales manager could help to get probably the solutions, just decided or agreed together.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a logical, stepwise process.
Would you do that straight after the call, or would you do the calls, like 3 or 4 calls or whatever you got planned for the day, and then sit down and do the feedback at the end of it? What are your thoughts, both of you, on that?
It depends, so it depends. First of all, if it has been agreed upfront that the sales manager comes to help the sales rep to develop his sales skills. If there are 3 or 4 meetings, not in a row, first of all, it should not be in a row, enough time to debrief after, but it could be a great opportunity from one meeting to the other to get a chance to debrief and apply what has been agreed to the next meeting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Your thoughts, Jayne?
Yeah, I totally agree, because what you want to be able to do is put something into practice. If we're being open enough to say, I think this went really well, I struggled with this, how can I improve that as a salesperson? Then my sales manager would be able to give me some, useful insight and some way to enhance my skill. Then practice that as soon as possible, which hopefully would be in the next meeting that we have organised together.
Yeah, that's a really, really good thought, yeah. I think there's some practical aspects as well, perhaps we haven't covered, and that is logistics. So for me, I always used to prefer my boss meeting with me somewhere, and then I drive around the day, and then I drop him off or her off at the end of the day, rather than following each other around in cars, which I think is, well, obviously it's not particularly efficient, but also you miss that valuable windscreen time, don't you, where you're on the motorway and you're having a chat as you go along about various topics, and you're getting to know each other on a one-to-one basis, perhaps a bit better than you would otherwise, really. So I think, and I would always drive. If I was a salesperson, I'd always insist on driving, unless there was a really good reason why the boss had to drive, really. So that was a key one for me. What about if you're the salesperson and the boss says, I am coming out with you next Wednesday? What if next Wednesday's looking like a disaster? What if you've got, one appointment and that one's a bit flaky? How do we handle that one?
Be honest, be open about that. If it's a really tough day and you're thinking, gosh, I haven't really planned and prepared for that, then there's probably a bit of time to do something with it. But I would always be honest, to say, it's a tough day. I've got, one appointment, but maybe that's okay. Maybe that's a time and an opportunity for you as salesperson and sales manager to have a proper conversation. Because some of those times, of course, when a sales manager is coming out with you mentioned at the beginning, Steve, that you don't always get to meet up very frequently.
No.
So it's useful to have some time, meeting time, just to discuss.
Yeah, so you might factor in a one-to-one during the day, perhaps at some stage. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I've took my boss cold calling before now, and I say, right, we're going to bang on some doors to an industrial park or something. If it's been,
absolutely.
Not the best day in terms of managed to book appointments. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this, Pascal?
I think it brings back to one of the key rules I would like to establish between the sales rep and his or her manager before the visit. I mean, allowing the sales rep to fail, to make mistakes.
Yeah.
That's part of the deal.
That's the sales manager's dilemma, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. The sales manager, he is here as, to go back to the analogy of the pilot, the plane pilot. I would say that the sales manager is the co-pilot. Okay. So he's not just, he is silent, but he's active. He's taking notes, he's observing.
Yes.
He's thinking. He can be there for any assistance if emergency, but he lets the sales rep driving.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's an interesting analogy, I guess, back to agreeing roles and responsibilities beforehand. So, if you're the co-pilot, it's okay if the pilot on the day switches the lights on a bit early, but not if he's going to crash the plane. You might want to jump in that case. Hopefully, just pushing that analogy a bit too far on that one, certainly.
However,
go on.
After the crash, that's what Jayne mentioned, that there is a need to run, analysis on this and learn from it, to avoid a new disaster, but really to take this as a key step to improve. And again, act as a sales manager, as a coach, not as the one to say you are guilty.
Yeah.
And no way, because then it will kill any next initiative from the sales rep to welcome you on the field.
I love all the crash investigation things on National Geographic, but as I'm about to get on a plane, I think we'll move the analogy on from that one. Would there ever be a time, Jayne, when you say to your boss, look, I just don't want you coming out that day. It's just not going to work for me. Would there ever be a time when you do that, you think?
I mean, there might be. I don't think I've ever done that.
No, not me. I would have been brave enough, I don't think. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't. But I embrace and like the idea of somebody coming out with one. Pascal mentioned that, as a salesperson, you can tend to feel alone a lot of the time when you're doing your job. So the idea of two people doing a call together is actually quite powerful because you've got more eyes within that. And of course, if it's a day that you haven't actually, depends why you wouldn't want your manager coming out with you that day. I'm thinking, if it was me, I haven't prepared for that day. I have got nothing going on. Do I want to admit that and show that to my manager?
I'm sure you were never in that situation, by the way, Jayne.
Yeah. No. But as a manager, would I want that my salesperson to say to me, I've got nothing prepared for that day? I think it's not what you want to hear, but I think there's a useful time, no matter what we've got in, and hopefully a well-planned and thought-out day. There is just good time to seek, an opportunity to speak with your sales manager on a one-to-one level.
Yeah.
So maybe the only the times you ever see your sales manager is a sales meeting.
Yeah.
And you might feel you're competing with other people for time to talk to them.
For sure, yeah.
So here's a great opportunity, to actually take that and embrace that moment. And maybe if it's a really bad day or whatever, it's like, actually, why not suggest that day is not the best for me, but I've got another. Can we do that the next week? I would suggest not. I'd go with the run of what your sales manager says, but you can offer another date up.
Yeah, I guess unless it's, if you came with me next Wednesday, we can go and see XYZ company, we can close this sale together. It'd be far more valuable,
Yes.
I guess it's a negotiation to some degree, isn't it?
Yes.
If that was the case, really.
Yeah.
What about if, and I hope this doesn't happen these days, I'd be surprised if it does, but what if you got the phone call literally on the morning, Pascal, your boss rings, where are you today? I'm coming to meet you. How would you handle that? Does it ever happen these days? Hopefully not, but...
I would say it did not happen to me quite often.
No.
Anyway, as Jayne said, you are supposed to be prepared.
Yeah.
And it should be a normal day for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Knowing that 80% of a meeting success from the preparation.
Great point.
True. Yeah.
It's not something that you could just neglect. And it's not, it's not when your boss is coming that you are going to prepare
Exactly.
your meeting, hopefully.
Exactly.
So I would double check with him anyway. What is the intent again?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What's the reason?
Nothing better to do, almost. Yeah.
And in the case I could not inform my customer upfront, then I would mention my boss that probably we would have to postpone the meeting because I don't want to, let's say, put my customer or create some bad surprise or let's say mixed feelings for my customer. First, I think about the customer.
Yeah, I mean, if the customer isn't expecting both of you, back to that discussion about letting them know beforehand. And I think if your manager's going to do that, I'd have to wonder, why are they doing that? Do they think I'm useless? In which case, we'd hopefully had a conversation before that. But also, it just feels a little bit, I don't want to use the word bullying because, I'm not going to, but it feels a little bit high stress management, really. That we hopefully wouldn't need to get into that scenario as manager. But anyway, we're looking at this situation as it from the salesperson. So
yes.
Any final thoughts then? So we've got our boss coming out with us next week. Anything that we've missed? Do you think, Jayne?
I'm not sure whether we've missed it, but I think it's a great opportunity for any salesperson to, I've said already, embrace that moment, but take this as an opportunity where you can further your development.
Yes, of course.
I think that's part of it, isn't it? And I think in my days of being a salesperson, and maybe this was just me, if there's any of my managers that ever were listening, they'll go, oh, goodness me, yes. I would have taken that moment to talk about actually, what are my plans? How can I develop further? What does this look like? What else do I need to know?
Yeah.
So I used to enjoy those moments. Of course, you've got to make sure you're well prepared for it, just as normal for any day. But the time that you've got to spend with your manager is really fruitful. Get that feedback.
Absolutely. It's a chance to find out what's going on back at the office and what's happening in the company and things like that as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
One from you, Pascal?
Yeah, and back to what Jayne said, I think it's a unique opportunity to strengthen the relationships between yourself and your manager. Also to convey some messages, so feedback from customers, feedback from the market.
Yes.
And also asking questions about either the next products to come or what sort of support you need from your manager, except, the visits you just ran together. It's, again, one-to-one conversation that's quite unique and that you need to take care of and take as a real great opportunity. Yeah, that's where I think that it's important to keep in mind as a sales rep.
Yep, great opportunity to get better in your job.
Yes.
Get some feedback from your boss, learn from your boss, spend time together, get to know them as individuals. It's a great thing to do. So if you have got your boss coming out with you, dear listener, over the next week, hopefully that's give you a few things to think about and a few ideas as well. And if you're the boss going out, we'll perhaps look at that from the other side in a future podcast. But give them a bit of notice. Don't just turn up on the day before. That's a little bit, perhaps it's not exactly playing the game, is it really? So if you've enjoyed today's episode, dear listener, then don't forget to subscribe to the show. That way we'll make sure you never miss an episode. And also, if you listen to us on Apple or Spotify, you can leave us a 5-star review. And I think on Apple, you can also leave a few words as to what we've been talking about and what you think on the show. You can also contact the show through an email address, which is just podcast@georgejames-training.com. That's podcast@georgejames-training.com. You can contact any of us at the George James Training Team if you know us, obviously, directly with our emails, but all the email links to Jayne, Pascal, myself, and our other colleagues are all also in the show notes to this particular show. So don't be strangers. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us. We all love LinkedIn connection requests for sure. So don't be shy to reach out to us. And if you would like us to look at a particular topic in the future, then of course we would love to hear from you as well. We do have a lot of scheduled training courses coming up over the next few weeks. I know, Pascal, you're running some in Paris. Jayne, you've got another round of courses in Cambridge coming up next time, is it?
Yeah, mid-May.
So if you're new to sales, that'd be a great place to go. And also, there are courses coming up for distributor management and also sales management. So check out the George James Training website for more information on those as well. I'll be back again in a couple of weeks' time. Until then, happy selling. Keep cool out there if it's as sunny where you are right now as it is here. And we'll talk to you soon.